this episode of The Gardener, Garth and I have come up with a grand idea to sort this space out. Now, any space which is just off a patio or where you need to walk creates absolute drama. I mean, what it does is all this mud's going to be inside. The dogs, inside. You know what I mean? Visitors, mud inside. It's all a bit of a sheer disaster zone. So what we're going to do is transform it into something beautiful. It's a perfect spot with these angles coming in off the patio, creating the lovely lines. And our plan of action is to create a water feature right in the center here. Beautiful, just off the edge of the patio, so you can hear the noise of the water. I mean, that's what we all want. Nothing big and bold, but something that's gentle. And that will allow us just to relax in this wonderful area of the patio. So what better to put in there than your very own water feature? One that you've made. Aha. That's the one, and we're going to show you just how easy it is. First step, you're going to need to get an old tyre. Now, everybody has some old tyres. You're always going into the tyre shop, swapping out new ones. Instead of leaving them behind, well, take them with you. And the first thing that you're going to need to do is cut it in half. The way that you're going to do that is by using a hacksaw. Take the hacksaw and cut your tyre into 2 halves. Now, you might think I'm absolutely mad at this point. Why on earth are we cutting it in half? Well, that's because that is going to form the actual mold. The mold is going to be the tyres, which are then going to be able to hold the concrete in it. Next step that we're going to do is drill in some holes just with an ordinary drill bit and use cable ties to tie the 2 ends of the tyre back together. So we're going to use 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, tighten them up and make sure you get the joins of the tyre really nice and snug. The snugger you get them, of course, the better your mold is going to turn out in the end. So if you're thinking this is all very familiar and you're having deja vu, or you think you might be losing it, no, you're not. The good news is that in a previous episode, we actually showed you this exact process right up until this step. But from now on, we're going to take it one step further. And this will enable you to use these tyre molds as a water feature. Remember the concrete mix that we used. It was 1 bucket of river sand, 1 bucket of 12mm stone, and half a bucket of PPC cement. So all our bits are in place. We've made sure that we've got a flat base, because wherever you're going to pour this mortar mix, make sure that it's going to stay. We've got our tyre, 3 cable ties in. It's ready and good to go. Garth, you've got the secret ingredient.
That's right, Tanya. It's only a little bit of pipe, but it's very important.
Okay, that is ordinary conduit.
That's ordinary conduit, yes.
Okay, get it from your local hardware store. The important part about this is to make sure it's as dead center in the middle of the circular area of the tyre as possible. Why do we need that? Garth, just show me there where you're going to be putting that guy. Okay, that's about right. Okay, hold him there for me, please. The reason why we're putting this is because we're making a water feature. We're going to be making 4 of these, and they are literally going to sit on top of each other, so to create a water feature that has that look about it. But of course, you need a hole in the middle to allow the water to be able to travel up it. So picture this, there's going to be a sump, the pump, all of these on top of each other, with then the pipe running up from the pump through the tyres and then just trickling over. So don't forget this. As insignificant as it might seem, make sure you put this guy in. Always put it in first, and then I'm just going to add the mixture, and Garth's going to hold that guy in place. Right, if you let that go, Garth, there we go. Once you've got your first layer of about 10 centimeters, about halfway of the tyre thickness, you're fine to do that and walk away. Get more of your mixture. When you come back, do just hold it though. Really important to use your little trowel and work it in. Right, final bits, just to tidy it up. Now remember folks, when we were doing the stepping stone molds, we made sure that this top surface was really nice and smooth, depending on the look and the finish that you want. Don't stress about that when we're doing it for this application, because the only parts of the water feature that we're going to be seeing, or our mold, are literally these guys here, the outside bits, because these are going to be stacked on top of each other. Most important is this okey pokey here. And final bits, which you always need to do, I love this part, take the rubber mallet, give it a good bashing, making sure that your mortar mix really gets into all these corners here. Perfect. Now all you do is leave it. Let it start drying. As soon as you see your mortar mix starting to change color, just come along and just turn your conduit. Just 1 or 2 turns, it just loosens it up a bit, and it does make it easier when you're installing. If something goes wrong, you are then able to remove this. It's always good to have a backup plan. If you want to put in a wider aperture pipe, you're more than welcome to. That is all just going to determine the volume of water that's pushed up through it, or in other words, what size pipe you'd be able to fit inside here. So don't be too stressed if you don't want to use the little guy, the thin guy like this. You could even use a 50mm pipe, or even just some ordinary irrigation piping. So, point is, you need to make 4 of these, or 3 of these, or 6 of these, depending on how high you want your water feature to be. So, Garth, I think our work is done.
Very nice, Tanya.
Good job.
Yep.
Folks, this is one of the tyres that we threw a couple of days ago. It's nice and dry, and we're going to show you how to take it apart now and what it's going to look like. Now, the trick is, the one that we threw, you saw it had this conduit in it over here. All we've done is we've cut that off, because we just need the hole over here to be able to put the piping through of our water feature. So, get rid of that. All you're going to do is snip away the cable ties. And what you want to do is, to make it easier, is just start prying the edge of the tyre where it's met with the original concrete. And then grab the one end. Garth, you got that end? Yep. Okay, and then literally just peel it off. There we go. Good job. Okay, that's the one. Aha! Bellissima! Perfect! There he is. This is our tyre mould, which is going to turn into a water feature. First up, what we need is one of these fiberglass ponds. Now, you can get these from most of your local garden centres, come in various sizes and shapes, and it really does take a whole lot of the stress and strain out of building a water feature. So we're going to be using this as the central point of this garden. So, Garth, what we need to do is, let's turn this boykie over, and we're turning it over. Why? Because we need to just mark it. Then we just make a mark around it. Okay, Garth, out he comes. There we go, that's all we need for now. Now we need to dig the hole, making sure that we stick to the line. Let's get this hole nice and deep enough to fit that pond in, because I want the lip of the pond to be right at the surface with the soil. Garth, what do you think?
Yeah, that's looking good, Tanya.
Okay, I think we're good enough for our pond. Let's just do a quick test, Garth. Pop the baby in. Okay, right. We have dug it a bit extra deeper, and that's important because we're now going to be putting in a layer of river sand, and we put the river sand in literally to make leveling easier, because you want to make sure that when you put the pond in here, it's plumb level, so that the rest of your water feature obviously ends up as level as can be. Lovely stuff. And then we're just going to move this out into the edges, and making sure that we're covering the whole base of the pond, or of the hole that we've dug, and then try and get this as level as possible. Now, let's grab that pond and let's put the baby in. Righty, in you go, my baby. That's the one. Now what we need is a long spirit level to put all the way across the pond to make sure that it still is looking plumb. Okay, Garth, next up, what I'd like to do is that we start just pushing down the edges here. We literally just take the spade, and at this point, folks, try and keep the soil out of the pond, because it just helps for when you're having to clean up. And just gently shave the edges, because as you're doing that, shaving the edges from this way at a 45-degree angle, all you're then doing is letting the soil just fall gently, and it just helps to compact and make sure that your pond is going to stay exactly in the right place. Next up, what we need to do is get our pump in place. Remember, when you are running any outdoor pumps, make sure that you've had a certified electrician fit an outside power plug point. That's very important. And also make sure that you've got a 3-core pump, because that is very important for safety. So let's get our pump, position him, and let's see how we go. So next step in our water feature is to use a plinth. All it is, it's basically a pump housing, and especially if you're going to be putting a pot on top of this, or like we're going to be using our concrete donuts, you want something that's nice and strong that'll be able to hold the weight of it. But you'll notice that this level isn't quite to the height of the pond. So what we're going to do is just put 4 cobblestones. that bottom of the pond, notice they black down there. So we're just going to pop that guy there. Then we've got our pump. Now the pump that we've got is going to reach a pump height of 1.2 meters. That's what we want. It's always very important at your local garden centre that you find out the height of the pump and the strength before you go and do the whole installation. And that little guy is just going to sit underneath here. So we're good to go. Now we need to get our donuts. Let's put these oaks on and let's check. Okay, Garth. Round we come. And nice and gently. Yeah. Awesomeness. Okay, so our first donut is on. We've got some water feature tubing. And what we're going to do, just to make life a bit easier, is put that in through the conduit right now. And we're going to pull it down, right down through the pump housing. So down it comes. There we go. So as we bring our next donut now, we're going to put it on top of this and then gently feed it through. Right, folks, our donuts are on top of each other, looking good. Now we've got this long piece of pipe. Now, obviously, you're not going to use it this long, but don't, at this point, cut it too short. I'm going to suggest that you cut it about there, right across there. That's the one, all right. And then we're just going to take a bit of marine sealer and seal around the join where it comes through the conduit. So I'm happy with that. All we do now is leave it to dry, Garth, and should we start planting?
I think it's a very good idea.
Before we switch this guy on, because of course we've got to let this dry first. Let's go. Right, final bits, folks, is that we need to cut off this little piece of tubing that we spoke about earlier. The silicone has had time to dry. Nice and flush, that's the way we want it. Last bit, here's our pump, here's our tubing, and we're literally just going to pop it in like that. Nice and easy. Put the pump down. It'll just rest on the bottom. And switch on. Let's see what happens. Oh, you beauty! You beauty! Look at you!